Coming up next on Tech News Weekly, it's me, Jason Howell, my co-host Mikah Sargent. We speak first with Scott Stein from CNET about the PlayStation VR2. It is announced, we've got more details, and it's pretty exciting. Also, we talk with Mark Gurman from Bloomberg. He has details, well, he hunted down anyways to try and find more details about Amazon's Astro home robot and the people who might actually own it. He had a very difficult time finding those people. Very interesting stuff. Also, Russia invaded Ukraine. And so we take some time to kind of think about what exactly is cyber warfare. And finally, Tumblr. Apparently it's still kicking and wants you to pay for it. All that and more coming up next on Tech News Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 223, recorded Thursday, February 24th, 2022.
This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Hover. Whether you're a developer, a photographer, or you run a small business, Hover has something for you to expand your projects and get the visibility you want. Go to hover.com/twit to get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year.
And by Progress. Progress has the technology you need to secure, analyze, and integrate your applications, network, and processes. Find out more and download a free trial at progress.com/twit.
And by ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN, it's like leaving your laptop exposed at the coffee shop table while you run to the bathroom. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/TNW and get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package.
And hey, quick reminder, twit.tv/survey22. These are the final days for our audience survey. This is a way where you can kind of share information about who you are, what you like, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. It helps inform us on what we can create going forward. So twit.tv/survey22. Do it before February 28th. We appreciate it.
It's time for Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I'm the other guy, Jason Howell. Good to see you, Mikah.
Good to see you too, Jason. Good to see you too.
Soon in studio.
Indeed, yes. That's what I was going to say. We will be returning to the studio very soon. So that should be a lot of fun to have us back in the saddle, at least for a little while before some other variant comes along.
The next thing. Yeah, exactly. I was back for All About Android. It felt good to be back in the studio. You know, it's just different energy. So I'm looking forward to it. Next week, I will be there. So let's jump in. The VR world got some pretty cool news this week, I thought anyways. It has a lot of people excited about what's to come, even if there are still some unanswered questions. Isn't it always like that? Joining me to talk about Sony's PlayStation VR2 announcement is Scott Stein from CNET. Welcome back, Scott.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, always great to get you on. And we're going to talk a little bit about PlayStation VR2 and then maybe a little bit about Apple, because you also wrote about Apple's AR VR headset. So we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But first, let's start with kind of like the exciting news. I have the original PlayStation VR downstairs. I also have the Quest and the Quest 2. So, you know, of the three headsets, the PlayStation VR gets the least amount of play because it was early on. Now we have some information about the next generation of PlayStation VR for the PS5. It's the PlayStation VR2. So give us a little bit of details. Is this something that we should be excited about, or is it still kind of Sony kind of behind the rest of the pack? How do you feel? What do we know that we didn't know before?
Yeah, well, I'm the same where I think the PlayStation VR unfortunately collects a lot of dust despite my covering VR. But that's not because there aren't great games for it. So it looks like what we're seeing here is Sony making a really big push to make a headset that is going to push the envelope technologically more than some other VR headsets have, which is great news. I mean, it sounds like the headset equivalent to the PlayStation 5. And some of the stuff that it's doing, you know, if you look at the design, it looks like a VR headset. Nothing that surprising. But Sony never made its own VR game controllers before. You had to work with, those old Move controllers, which weren't intended for it. Now they have these really fancy advanced haptics controllers. It can track without using a camera connected to your TV, which is what all the other VR headsets already do. But the resolution on this is supposed to be OLED, 4K quality, like 2000 by 2000 resolution, roughly. The thing is, like, 4K doesn't really translate in quite the same way. I feel like when you're using VR, I think it's kind of a perceptual thing. But what's really interesting besides the OLED is it's got eye tracking. And that we have not seen on any consumer VR headset at this point. Although Meta is supposed to be making a headset with eye tracking this year. The reports are that Apple's headset is going to have eye tracking. So this could be kicking off a big trend there.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like the next generation of VR is going to integrate that. And like, if you had to guess, I mean, like, what is this? Is this, because I've heard some, questions around this being that, like, say I look at a character, the eye tracking recognizes that I'm looking at the character responds, or is it something deeper than that? Because I mean, that's pretty cool. But like, what could this open up in the realm of VR going forward?
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff and some unanswered questions too. I spoke with Tobii, which is a company that makes the eye tracking components to a lot of existing VR and AR headsets. And that gave me a lot of insight too. I think a couple of things Sony's made very clear. One is called Foveated Rendering, which is a way that you could actually make the graphics better for the PS5's performance by focusing only on what your eye's looking at. This tech really works. It's out there already on business end headsets. This could be the first time we really see it applied to kind of mainstream gaming. But I think the other thing they're talking about is eye contact, which is something that in all the metaverse talks out there, people talk about social environments, the idea of like, how do you make a cartoon avatar feel like it's working better for you? Well, now you can see where your eyes are moving. That gets into a whole question about, for other devices like data and, how much is this looking at the heat map of your attention? But I feel like on a game console, that may not be as much of a concern. But then the other thing might be controls, because this is supposed to allow you to focus. And well, what it does is you can focus and get a lock on what you're controlling more smoothly. So, if you're looking at something and then you press the trigger, it could grab whatever you're looking at, which could make the VR controls feel a lot more normal in some games.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm excited to hear about that. Now, the other aspect of this that it seems like people were reacting to, and probably one of the aspects of my PlayStation VR downstairs, one of the two things that I don't like, right? One is the controllers suck. Two is it's totally tethered, which in the early days of this VR renaissance, that was a normal thing. Now we're getting really used to not having, any cables connected to the headset. Yet this next generation VR unit, the VR2, has a connected wire. How do you feel about that tethered requirement, especially in comparison with things like the Quest and whatever's going to come out next?
I would really like if Sony had somehow made something like the Quest, especially with their handheld background. What if there was like a Vita or PSP standalone VR thing that could also work with the PlayStation 5? I would imagine cost factored into that, because already there are competitors out there that have made things to be a consumer device against the Quest. And I think a lot of that is cost. So, maybe that's part of it. That being said, this only has one USB-C cable, which is a lot better than what had been previously done on the PlayStation VR, which was that crazy breakout box, which was pretty awful. And one of the reasons why I ended up disconnecting it and never reconnecting it again. So I think that's going to help, but you're right. I think the question is like, when you have modern VR games, a lot of them are becoming pretty active. A lot of them are fitness based. That's a big part of what Meta's been doing with the Oculus Quest 2 and all that. How easy would that be to use on a PS5? I mean, there is Beat Saber on PlayStation VR already. There are games where you move around, but you're going to have to worry about tangling that cable. But that's also kind of the way it works for most PC VR still. So it might be more acceptable, even though I don't really like that tether.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and when I've had to plug in the Meta Quest because, I'm low on battery or whatever. I don't have like a larger battery pack or whatever, like you can get for it. So when I've had to plug that in, it's also a USB-C cable into the wall. And it's miles better than the big fat pipe that you get into the PlayStation VR. So it is an improvement, even just going smaller. And then before we get into Apple, they also announced a game, Horizon Call of the Mountain. I mean, the clip that they showed was very brief, but what can you tell us about that? Is there anything that we know beyond kind of what they showed off?
Yeah, it's just a small snippet, and then it's a lot of talk. I think looking at it, it looks beautiful, but it also kind of looks like a ride, where it looks like you're kind of in this river, like a little Jurassic Park-like. The question is, how much will this feel like a ride? A lot of VR, early VR, and still a lot of games are about kind of making you feel you're on this kind of simulated immersive ride experience. Sometimes those games are not all that replayable. But what I think is interesting, I don't know how much it'll cost and how many hours you'll play with it, but what I'm excited about for this is that this is an opportunity for Sony and a lot of other game developers to possibly develop whole new experiences for VR. I think on the Quest 2, you're very limited by the processing power. And a lot of games that have come onto that have been ports of older games, some new ones. And this is a chance for, I think, could there be PC games that make the leap over? Could there be games that go even further? Sony has so much design experience and makes so many interesting partnerships with studios that I think it could trailblaze some really interesting ideas for VR if you can afford, the whole package.
Yeah, and Sony is old hat as far as the game industry is concerned. They have some really great IP. They have the money to put behind some really unique exclusive experiences. So yeah, I would agree. That's probably the most exciting aspect of this. Excellent hardware coupled with some really fantastic IP that's probably coming out in the years to come. Let's transition a little bit before we have to let you go and talk a little bit about Apple. You also wrote about Apple this week, their AR VR headset with a possible release sometime in the next year. Now, obviously that's a guess, but I don't think that I would have called that. I would still have expected that this is a few years out. What are we hearing exactly? And what's the source of this?
What everything keeps shifting, and a lot of stuff comes in from Mark Gurman at Bloomberg and some other sources, analysts. I think what we've been seeing for years. CNET, Shar Titkin had written about it years ago, talking about that there would be a headset. I think the target date seems to keep shifting, and Apple always talks about AR. Tim Cook is always talking about AR, and so I think the idea of AR and some sort of wearable device down the road that could be like an evolution of what the watch and AirPods have been doing, that does seem to line up. But there are so many unknowns on that part of it, including how they'd stay on your face all the time, which nobody solved in smart glasses. But on the immediate time frame, the reports keep coming in that it's more like a VR headset. And that's where, if Apple wants to do that, there's a clear product that could be made, which is sort of like a more advanced version of what the Quest 2 is doing, some sort of device like that. What I think gets really interesting is that there is a way that AR can work with VR headsets through pass-through cameras. That technology I've seen on a super high-end, $5,000 VR headset made by Vario last year, but it's moving into more mainstream products like Meta's headset. We still don't know if the PlayStation VR2 could possibly do that with its cameras. But I think that type of mixed reality could be a big part of what Apple does with that headset. But I think maybe fitness too. It's all guesswork at this point. But a lot of reports have pointed to stuff that, I've been thinking about, Apple already having in play, things like avatars with, Memoji for years, or the share play stuff they've been including. A lot of the things they've been solving for in their mobile landscape could be the building blocks for what they do with a connected thing. And then I think as a final note, one thing that other devices have not solved are the cross-device compatibility things. Like Meta is making those moves now, but it's going to be really hard to solve between laptops and phones and everything working. That's where Apple, I think, with all of their new chips, could make this thing work really seamlessly with Apple devices, most likely only. But I think that's intriguing because other than PCs, and those have some quirks too, we haven't really seen that with headsets working that seamlessly.
Yeah. No matter how you slice it, if Apple's coming into an industry, like this, it's going to be a super compelling and entree. What is interesting to me is, the rumored kind of $3,000 headset price. Who knows if it's going to be that, but that certainly points into the direction of a very high-end solution, more expensive than what we're used to. And then Ming-Chi Kuo saying that Apple, wants to replace the iPhone with augmented reality in 10 years. And it's just hard for me to like wrap my head around, okay, what is that? What are we doing 10 years from now, But I'll be curious to see if Apple's in the game, as well as everything else that's happening right now. It's just, I feel like it's an exciting time for VR and AR. So I'm looking forward to it. Scott, really appreciate you hopping on and chatting with me about this and everything you do at CNET. Love your work. Folks should follow Scott Stein at cnet.com. If people want to follow you online, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at JetScott. That's where I'm at most often, and also at CNET.
Right on. Cool. Thank you so much, Scott. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Scott. Up next, we are investigating Amazon's elusive home robot. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by, my pals at Hover. It's time to make plans and let Hover help you achieve them. If you're a blogger, if you're creating a portfolio, if you're building an online store, if you just want to make a more memorable redirect to your LinkedIn page, or you're a podcaster who makes jokes on podcasts and then wants to make websites out of them. Definitely not speaking from experience there. Hover has the best domain names and email addresses just for you. Email at your domain name is key to connecting with customers and building trust for your brand. So they have domain-based emails for all your needs, small or large. They're super easy to set up. You can add as many mailboxes to your domain as you need. When your domain renews, your mailbox is going to as well. And the prices are unbeatable. Their most popular mailbox is a no-brainer solution for business owners. You can get access from anywhere. So that means that you can use the email app that you use for everything else, or if you want to, you can use the webmail that Hover provides. Just go to the Hover website and access it there if you want. Look, I love Hover so much because Hover makes it so simple, easy, and secure to get domains when you need to, which in my case is all the time because I am a goof who likes to buy lots of domains. And so all I do is I type in a search term, I come across the domain that I'm looking for, I tap buy, and what I love too is that it supports Apple Pay. And so it's very easy for me to just go, yep, I'll be having that domain. And what I love too about Hover is that their whole thing is we sell you domains and mailboxes in this case. We're not in the business of trying to grab all of your information. That means that all I have to do is go on and be able to get the domain that I want and not have to worry about paying extra for those privacy features that I want. So they don't want to upsell you. They just want to help. They've got pro-level tools. So if you know a thing or two, then there's powerful domain and email management tools that are intuitive and easy to use, whether you're a web pro or you're just getting started. It's private and secure. This is what I was talking about just then with Whois privacy protection included with your domain purchase. Your private information is going to remain private. So that way you can reduce spam and protect yourself from unwanted solicitations. The one time years ago when I bought a domain that wasn't from Hover, it was within a month that I got in the mail this huge package with like all of these pens and things with my name on them, where this company was trying to sell me on buying a bunch of different stuff that was branded with my name and my address and all that kind of stuff. And how did they find it? Well, it's because I bought a non-Hover domain and the Whois privacy protection was not in place. Buy your domains from Hover with that Whois privacy protection included, and then you don't have to worry about it. Plus, with Hover Connect, if you're not super fancy schmancy and know how to get all of those things set up, well, Hover Connect lets you pick the service you want to use to build and host your website, and it will help you start using your domain with just a couple of clicks. So you can go in, you can say, oh yeah, yeah, I really want to use this with my Tumblr blog, for example. And clicking on that will start the process. It'll help you figure out what you need to do to make that all work together. At Hover, you are a customer. You're not a source of data. So take back control of your data with reliable, tracker-free email. Hover is trusted by hundreds of thousands of customers, myself included, who use their domain names and email, yes, I use both, to turn their ideas into a reality. So whether you're a developer, a photographer, a small business, or as I said, a jokey joke podcaster, Hover has something for you to expand your projects and get the visibility you want. Just go to hover.com/twit. You'll get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension for the entire first year. And should I mention too, like those sales are awesome. They're coming all of the time. You can get 10% off your first purchase of any domain extension on that. Like, let's just keep adding the savings. That's fantastic. That's hover.com/twit for 10% off your domain extension for a full year. And of course, we thank Hover for their support and being the backbone of all the domains that I have on the internet. All right, rolling right along. I'm excited today. I saw this story fly by the other day and I clicked on the link, and I mean, the first thing I got to say is the animation at the top of this piece is really cool. So we'll talk about that in a second, but I want to talk about Amazon's Astro home robot. It's a little bit of a Where's Wally kind of situation where we heard about this product and then it kind of just disappeared after the first day or so, or maybe the first month or so of us hearing about what it was, what different engineers who worked on it had to say about it, et cetera. And then it, started to roll out to folks, and we just didn't know what was going on. Luckily, we've got Mark Gurman from Bloomberg, who pulled out the magnifying glass, put on the detective cap, and used some robotic AI to track down some of these Astro home robots. Welcome back to the show, Mark.
Thanks, as always, for having me. Really appreciate it. The Astro is super fascinating. I wish I would have had the chance to try it out at this point, but it was pretty nice to be able to talk to someone who actually has one and learn more about, like you said, what's going on with this device.
Absolutely. So for the folks out there who maybe didn't hear about it when it came out or didn't get a chance to watch the event, could you tell everybody what the Astro home robot is?
It's literally like your own personal R2-D2 that can follow you around your home. It is a home robot straight out of the Jetsons, and it has a display on it, a tablet-sized screen. So if you're familiar with the Echo Show, that's the Amazon Echo with the display. You can do commands. You can see things on it. It's that, but on wheels, right? It's a couple feet tall. It has 3 wheels, one at the front, 2 at the back, and it uses computer vision and AI and other technology similar to what you would have in a self-driving car to roam around your home. And it can tag onto you, follow you around. It can go to different rooms that you've set. If you've ever used a Roomba vacuum cleaner from iRobot, very similar underlying tech to that. It has a few additional bells and whistles. Like it has that display. It has a couple cup holders if you want to put a drink in there or a beer and whatnot. It has your microphones to be able to talk to it and talk back to you. It has these virtual eyes on the display. And then one of the cooler pieces of equipment on this is what they call the Periscope Camera. It's a 3.5 foot tall pole with a camera on top that will come out of the base of the robot. So let's say you want to use the security functionality. You want it to roam your home while you're gone. If you want to talk to your dog, if you want to see if you left the burners on, or you want to see if you left your thermostat on, or whatever you may want to do, that camera can go up and down. It can swivel and move. So you can use the corresponding smartphone app, iPhone, Android, etc., to see what's going on visually. You can talk to it. You can hear back from people talking to the robot. So it is a fairly nifty piece of equipment, but like you said, it remains mostly elusive.
Yeah. So before we get into your investigation, I was hoping we could talk about kind of the lead up to this, which is we heard from different engineers who had worked on the product and some folks who maybe got an even earlier look than they did, than the folks who signed up to kind of be a part of this, to buy it, that this maybe wasn't all it was chalked up to be, that it was throwing itself downstairs, that it did not work as expected, that there were some issues. I'm curious, first of all, if you could sort of define what Amazon calls a day one edition product so that people can understand that. And then I'm curious, your thoughts just in general on if you think this was more of a day zero edition product versus a day one edition product based on the reactions that we had early on.
It's funny. So a day one edition product is essentially beta hardware that you have to pay full price for. They ship them in limited quantities, but you can buy them if you're granted an invite. So they are invite only. You have to pay for them. You're encouraged to give feedback. Versus a main consumer product is anyone could buy it at any time, ships fairly quickly. It's not a beta. You don't necessarily have to give feedback on the product. You just use it, right? And there is like a sort of an early bird pricing special on this right now for the invite only program, day one edition. It's $9.99. They say the actual device will be $14.49, so about $450 more expensive than it is today. And there are issues. So I spoke to someone who has this device near Orlando, Florida. They have all sorts of Echoes and stuff. They say this feels very similar to when the Echo first came out. This person actually had a beta version of the Echo speaker 7 years ago before that went public too. And he said it was, it didn't work so well. It didn't really understand your commands, but over time it improved. Tons of issues with the computer vision. He says that sometimes the robot doesn't know where it is in space. It doesn't know how to move around stairs. It doesn't respond quickly. Sometimes when you're controlling it with the iOS app, the robot moves very sluggish versus if you tell it to work through, if you operate it through Alexa, it'll move much more swiftly. So there are tons of bugs. But Mikah, I think the fundamental problem with this device isn't the core technology, because you can figure that out, right? Amazon has so much money, so many engineers. They can repair the computer vision. They could fix that. The fundamental problem with this device is that it does not have a fundamental use case, and Amazon has not sold mass consumers on why they should have this product. Even if they nail the engineering and the technology, which they will because they're Amazon and all these tech companies, they eventually figure it out, right? But it's not important enough just to figure the tech out. You have to figure out why people should buy this thing, why I want one in my home, why I want to spend $1,000 on this thing. See, home robots in the past did have use cases. I have a Roomba at home. I have actually two Roombas at home, one that does the vacuuming and one that does the floor washing, right? Those have a purpose. I could sell to myself, you know what, I'll pay $500 for a home robot that will do something for me. Would I pay $1,000 for a robot that can follow me around to hold my water and play music? Right? Probably not. Right. So they need to nail the implementation.
Yeah, and I mean that makes me ask, what was the sort of value prop for this product? Because I'll give an example. When the Apple Watch first came out, you probably remember, I think it was even Tim Cook who described it as the most personal product that Apple has ever made. And there was this like sharing your heartbeat with somebody else. And it was very communication oriented. And it had all of these goofy features where you could send taps and things to other people. And over time, as Apple saw how people used it, then that sort of shaped how the product was. But Apple had this original idea for what this product was supposed to be used for. What is Amazon's current idea for what this product is supposed to be used for? What is it aimed at doing? And then if it's aimed at whatever Amazon is saying, why is it that people aren't into this idea?
So it's very similar to the original Apple Watch. And to your point, Apple threw everything at the wall and they let people pick over time what they felt the device's main use case would be for, right? I mean, I use mine like a mini iPhone more than anything, which I think is not originally how it was intended. They wanted to do the clocks, the fitness, all that kind of stuff. But now it's fitness notifications and texting and whatnot. Astro is being positioned as an at-home security device. It's being positioned as a little device that can roam your home. If glass breaks, if there's a fire, if there's something going on, it can run over there and figure out what's going on. Learn if it needs to notify you. Learn if it needs to call paramedics or the police or whatnot. Learn if it needs to help a small child or an elder. So lots of security functionality. But there's also the main Alexa commands. There's the idea of having an Amazon Echo that follows you around anytime you need it, right? Who wants that? Right. So I think at this point, security is probably the primary feature. But, Amazon has another day one edition device. This is I believe it's day one edition. It's a Ring drone that flies around your home to monitor while you're away. I think I would rather have a drone than a robot roaming around. Right. How cool would the drone be?
Right.
So
right.
I think that drone actually is going to do pretty well. I really do. Are you familiar with that? Have you seen
yeah, absolutely.
The Ring drone?
Yeah, the Ring.
Yeah, I think that's going to be great.
And
I think they gave it some simple name like the at-home cam or something, right?
Yes.
But it's basically it's a drone, and it's I would get that personally, and I think it's much cheaper.
It solves. Exactly. It's less expensive. It solves some of the issues that the robot will have, which include, not being able to go around stairs. I think, though, either of them, or both of them, rather, have a certain creep factor that I can't seem to get past personally. And that's where I'm wondering, why do you think that the people who do have this, because you tracked down this one fifth grade teacher in Florida who was happy to talk about it. But as you mentioned, usually when people get something early, they love talking about it. They love posting videos about it. They love to say, hey, check out this thing that I got that not everybody else gets to have. But we haven't seen a lot about this. Is it because people unbox it and it works so poorly that they just are like, actually, I don't want to talk about this? Or is it because of the sort of fear of judgment? Oh, you want Amazon following you around in your home? That's so weird. What do you think personally maybe the reason why this fifth grade teacher who's a super big Amazon fan was the only one who's talking about it, despite the fact that it has been made available to many folks?
I mean, to be completely honest with you, I found 2 people in the world with the Astro, contacted both of them, only got 1 reply. So 50% hit rate, right? Which isn't bad at all in this line of work. But 2 people, only 2 people posting about $1,000 device that only a tech fanatic would really want at this point.
Right.
You know what that means? It means there's very few in the world. And to be honest with you, I believe there's between 50 and 100 in the wild, not operated by Amazon employees. And so I think that's why you're seeing such limited traction at this point. So they basically announced the device 6 months ago, and they've sold between 50 and 100 of them, right? That's an issue within itself. They spent 4 years development time on this, even more. They spent billions of dollars in research and development, employees, taking people off of other projects, building facilities for this, and it basically launches to a dud, right? Imagine if Apple launched the first iPhone or the first iPad and they sold 1,000 units, right? Wow. We're talking about 100 here. So
yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. That makes a lot more sense, that there just aren't that many other than Amazon employees who probably are not able to talk about it as openly as this person was able to.
And I will tell you something, because I did ask Amazon before I published the story, is there some sort of gag order or some sort of requirement in the day 1 edition program where if you get one of these devices, you can't talk about them? And they were very clear and said, no, there is no requirement. If you get one, you can talk about it just like any other product you buy. So I think that adds some extra intrigue into how limited these things are so far.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And one of the things that you noted too, and I have to admit that I have been guilty of this in the past. I've signed up for a couple of day 1 edition products that I got and then didn't provide feedback because it's not required. The fifth grade teacher said, yeah, I got this robot, but I haven't really provided any feedback. I mean, you have to wonder if that's also something that Amazon is considering if they are looking to improve upon this product. I mean, was it just about selling these things, or are they trying to eventually make a robot that people would want? Is this kind of the first step into things? And how do you think that they're going about kind of figuring out what users want if there are so few of these out in the wild?
I got to tell you, if they're really expecting good feedback, they should be giving them away. They shouldn't be charging people, right, $1,000 and expecting feedback, right? If someone gave me something for $1,000 for free in exchange for giving feedback, I'd give some pretty detailed feedback and try to improve the product because they did something nice for me. I would do something back for them. The problem is they're charging people top dollar and still expecting feedback. So I don't think that's necessarily a great strategy per se. One thing about the day 1 edition products, so I don't think this is the third, but it's the third that I know about. There was the Echo Frames and there was the Loop, which is sort of like a ring with a microphone and speaker on it. You can talk to it like this, which is, I think the ring, I tried it when they announced it. I thought that was pretty nifty and pretty cool. The glass is not for me. I don't really see the point. Yeah, what's the point if you can just get Amazon earbuds if you're in the Alexa ecosystem? Why would you want the whole glasses situation that provide no lenses-based AR, VR functionality? The Loop, they actually discontinued, but I actually thought that was kind of nifty.
I agree with you there. I think that the Loop was a much cooler product. I had the Day One Edition Echo frames. The sound was terrible. And so it's like, why even have a cruddy pair of Bluetooth headphones when I can just talk to ALEXA in other ways? I don't need to have ALEXA in my frames if it's not even going to sound very good, and there's nothing that I'm seeing in front of my vision. So yeah, I'm right there with you. I guess then my question for you is, does Amazon see the Astro as the sort of its only approach into robotics, or do you think we're going to see more robotic stuff from Amazon going forward?
So on the consumer side, I think everything is going to sort of break out of, Astro. There'll be probably in the future, if they continue down this path, multiple iterations, maybe Astros with arms, maybe Astros with vacuum cleaners or additional functionality. In terms of Amazon as a larger conglomerate, right, one of the biggest companies in the world, they do implement robotics into their warehouses, into their fleet management. Obviously, they have been working on self-driving car technology with, their Rivian partnership and other partnerships they have going on there. But in terms of at home, consumer grade, I think it all starts with Astro specifically.
Understood. Well, Mark Gurman, I want to thank you so much for joining us again today. We do appreciate you. If folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work that you do, where should they go to do so?
Thank you, as always, for having me. I'm at twitter.com/Mark Gurman. And please, if you have not already, subscribe to Power On. It's my newsletter where you can get details on all this and much, much more, particularly about Apple, Amazon, and Peloton. And Mikah, please have me back on again soon. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today. And yes, we'll have you back on again soon.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Up next, we're going to shift gears a little bit and dive into some of the technical implications of Russia's invasion of the Ukraine that kicked off 12 hours ago, not very long ago. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Progress. Now, Progress has been enabling enterprise experiences for decades. They've been assembling the technologies that are going to empower businesses to thrive in a post-COVID world. Most companies don't have the resources to invest in technology as digital Goliaths. They need to use technology to create differentiation with a smaller investment. They can achieve this actually by turning to Progress as their trusted provider. With Progress, any organization can achieve the level of differentiation that's critical, really critical in today's business environment. Whether you're an IT professional who happens to be concerned with networking and infrastructure, security, compliance, or maybe you're enabling web and digital experiences, Progress has a solution for you. There's Move It, managed file transfer. This actually provides control, security, and visibility over all file transfer activities. So transferring confidential data through insecure channels actually, as you know, it opens up your organization to liabilities. Well, with a managed file transfer solution, you actually gain insight into who has access to your files, if the file was accessed, and then, of course, when. There's also What's Up Gold Network Monitoring. This allows you to monitor networks, applications, and devices, both in the cloud and on premises. There's Kemp Loadmaster Load Balancer. This is a next generation load balancing and application delivery solution for private, public, and hybrid cloud. There's Flowmon Network Intelligence. It's a network performance monitoring and network detection and response solution. And finally, there's Sitefinity, digital experience platform. This is for building digital experiences across channels that actually improve business agility and foster personal relationships with visitors. Progress has so much for you. It has the technology that you need to secure, to analyze, and integrate your applications, your network, and your processes. And you can find out more and actually download a free trial. So check that out at progress.com/twit. Don't miss out. Visit progress.com/twit and you'll get your very own Progress swag bag. Not bad. Progress.com/twit. And we thank Progress for their support. All right, so no question today feels a little different. It's one of those days where, I woke up and like the energy and the mood is down because I knew when I went to bed exactly last night what was going on. Russian President Vladimir Putin launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. mere hours ago at the time of this recording anyways. A lot of people, have a lot of fears around this. Is this going to become the largest European conflict since World War II? Certainly seems possible / likely. But we also live in a time now that's very different from, let's say World War II, right? Digital warfare unquestionably going to play a toll, play a part in this conflict, and that impacts everyone, right? There are no visible borders when you're talking about our digital footprint online, particularly, making this even more complicated at a time where we distrust, right? There's a lot of distrust online right now, and this has been happening for years now. So we're kind of used to not trusting things, and how does that impact what we see around this conflict based on what we've, experienced so far? So there were a few things that caught my attention that I was just kind of reading about this morning that I found interesting. So I thought I'd kind of like relay some of these things and, just from my own learning to you. Yesterday, Ukrainian banks and government agencies were actually hit by a new malware called Wiper. And it's actually a data wiping malware. That makes sense. The name totally makes sense. It destroys or makes data unrecoverable. It also happens to break the underlying OS. So that includes trashing a device's master boot record, so it can't even boot anymore. And it was compiled on December 28th of last year. So that ultimately, that just means, that this attack has been in the works, at least for a few months' time, kind of waiting for the right time to strike. And this happened yesterday, kind of at the start of all of this, all of the conflict. Attribution hasn't been given directly to Russia explicitly yet, but Russia has utilized data wipers like this before, so it's possible. And I think just what's kind of chilling about something like this is you can imagine a country in panic, it's being attacked, bank software suddenly goes down, and that prevents any of the citizens to access the money that they need when they need it in order to evacuate. That panic sets in, and you can just kind of imagine what kind of chaos something like this. And I'm not saying that the Wiper is necessarily doing this, although if you go to TechMeme, I mean, it's right at the top. This is definitely having a huge impact on all sorts of organizations, including governmental agencies. So, and the White House here in the U.S. has actually warned that a similar campaign could be directed very easily to the U.S. as well in response to its own involvement. Putin has actually threatened pretty severe consequences for countries that really get in the way of this invasion. So, I mean, if we're talking about, cyber warfare, and I'm sure you're going to hear all about this on Sunday's TWiT. This is probably going to be the top story. But when you're talking about cyber warfare, I mean, this is just the beginning of the potential of what that means. And I don't know, it just takes that terminology that I feel like I've heard but never really spent the time to truly understand the broader impacts of what cyber warfare actually means. And this could be a really big deal in the coming weeks, months, and however long this lasts for. Sorry. And then I mentioned disinformation, right? Disinformation is like this ongoing thing that, for better or for worse, we've kind of grown accustomed / numb to the impacts of it, right? Because it's just, I mean, since 2016, I mean, Mikah, it's been a constant kind of drumbeat and something that we've been having to really pay close attention to. And this seems like a moment that is ripe for that.
Well, and I think, too, that, Russia has, it's been proven, has a studied history of its ability to do real damage with disinformation. We talk about cyber attacks that are like this, where it's a program that goes in and wipes things away. But that's only one type, I feel, of cyber warfare that's being done. I think that the disinformation campaigns that exist, the bots that are out there, that also is a form of cyber warfare, to have influenced our election in such a way. I remember reading a story about how during the presidential election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, that it was shown that Russia had ignited a campaign that played a role in affecting the the way that Black Americans felt about Hillary Clinton, and that there were a whole bunch of advertisements and messages and bits of text that were put out to attempt to influence Black Americans and bring forth this sort of lesser of two evils mindset that led to apathy in that election, that led to all sorts of things that had an influence on the way that that election played out. And so this goes a long way. And to this day, there are still times when Facebook has put out reports where they talked about the advertisements that they removed from the site and the source of those advertisements, where we see these different things playing out all the time. A lot of on Security Now, we hear a lot about ransomware attacks and how many of those are based in Russia. And so it's just it's a thing that Russia is very good at doing, cyber warfare. And I think that cyber warfare has many faces, and that includes the disinformation campaigns that exist and will play a role. And that's what it was interesting and heart-wrenching last night when it was actually my partner who said, uh-oh, and I said, what? And then he read the story. And then the little tidbits, the little details, the little bits of information, the whole time there's a part of me in my mind that's going, which parts of this are true? What source is it coming from? What is actual reported fact? What isn't? And you have to have that skepticism the whole time and hope that you are getting the real information that's not being doctored by a country that is, well, a group of people in charge of a country who are very good at doing that, who are very good at misleading and misguiding. So, yeah, it's one of those things that it's not even just the horrific outcome of what has already happened, but there's so much more to it that I think that we have not had to experience so much until this point, understanding the threat of cyber warfare that exists just as much as the threat of physical warfare.
Yeah, and how that paints our understanding of what's going on, at a time when everybody's wants to understand on a deeper level. But like you said, it's kind of ingrained in us to distrust, or whether we do the work to really find out what the truth is. It's ingrained in us to immediately see something and just distrust, or potentially distrust the source. And I think that's kind of the challenge that a lot of the social networks themselves are facing right now. Like, there's a lot of citizen ground, like on the ground citizen reporting, hitting TikTok, hitting Twitter. These companies have certain systems in place to monitor and to remove certain types of content. But no doubt they're going to make the wrong decision sometimes, right? They're going to deem something as disinformation when in fact it's actually something that's really helpful. And this actually just happened yesterday. Twitter mistakenly removed accounts that were sharing Russian military activity details. And even, Twitter admitted it was proactively monitoring for misleading and altered photos and videos. Mistakes were made. They removed them. They reinstated them. But what are the impacts of something like that when they happen? Like, what is the cost, right? They end up removing these things that might be giving someone the information that they need to protect themselves. But then the platform removes it thinking that it's incorrect or that it needs to be removed. It's almost like being, no pun intended, but being gun shy. It's like, or feeling like you have to do more than less. And as a result, there's a lot of unintended consequences that happen right there. And that has actual impact to lives in a situation like this. One thing I came across that I thought was worth resharing is that when we, as users of social media, recognize, you know, in a moment like this where tensions are high, the impact is real. I mean, there's no question. This is a serious moment for the planet, right? It's easy to be very reactive with the things that we see in social media, you know, words, videos, we see it in our timeline. We get really angry or whatever that emotion is. And so often it happens where when we are that reactive, we end up retweeting, we end up you know, broadening that signal and blasting it out to more people, believing that by doing so we're helping the situation. And I came across an acronym SIFT that I hadn't seen before that I thought was really good. Stop, investigate the source, find better coverage, trace claims, quotes, and media to the original context. And the idea just being that, like, when we see these things that stir these emotions, maybe the immediate response isn't, well, I'm going to broaden that, you know, splash that signal out to even more people and retweet or whatever. Not saying that you can't do that or shouldn't do that, but slow down, like take a pause. Anytime I've made a decision that was out of pure emotion, you know, often I regret it later. I'm like, oh, well, I really should have stopped and thought about that a little bit deeper, to, you know, because there's something I know now that I didn't know then, and I wish I had known that. So, you know, actually vetting the information. What's that?
Can you repeat the SIFT acronym? I think it's what's worth saying again.
Yeah. Stop, investigate the source, find better coverage, trace claims, quotes, and media to the original context. So yeah, so hopefully that's helpful, because otherwise we end up kind of potentially contributing to the problem of amplification around things that may or may not even be true, right? Or you know, and it's great when it works out well, but it's not so great when you amplify something and then you realize after the fact, oh, that's a video from 2015 and, you know, I was totally duped. And you can delete that, but it's like the impact's already done, right? A number of people have already been convinced based on that video that something happened or didn't happen or whatever. So it's just kind of a reminder to slow down. That's all I got. So yeah, it's unfortunate that what's going on right now, and no question, I mean, it's going to be a big topic, not just in the CNNs and the Fox Newses and everything of the world, but I mean, there's a lot of really potent and powerful technological impacts and stories that are going to be looped through this. I have no doubt about that. So I'm sure we'll talk about it more.
Absolutely. All right. We'll have a little bit more in a moment. I want to talk about it's a bit of nostalgia, but also a bit of checking in on an old friend. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, I want to tell you about ExpressVPN. Using the internet without ExpressVPN, you know what that's like? It's like leaving your laptop exposed at the coffee shop table when you run to the bathroom. Most of the time, you're probably fine. But what if one day you come out of the bathroom and your laptop is gone? Not great. So why does everyone need a VPN? Well, every time you connect to an unencrypted network, cafes, hotels, airports, any hacker on the same network can gain access to your personal data. That's passwords, financial details, etc. And it doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack someone. Just some cheap hardware is needed. So, you know, a smart youngster could do it. Your data is valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal information on the dark web. All right, why use ExpressVPN? Well, first of all, the encrypted tunnel. It creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet so hackers can't steal your sensitive data. It's super secure. It'd take a hacker with a supercomputer more than 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. It's easy to use, so you can fire up the app and click one button to get protected, and it works on all devices, phones, laptops, routers, and more, so you can stay secure on the go. I have and use ExpressVPN literally all the time. I love ExpressVPN because it really is that boom, click, you're done. I've got it on my iPhone, my iPad, my Mac. I use it whenever I'm on the go. On very rare occasions,
I have it on my router.
Yeah, you have it on your router even. It can go all the way to the router.
Like everything goes through it.
Yeah, and what's super cool too is that ExpressVPN has some excellent documentation so that if you do want to set it up for different devices, specific kinds of devices, you absolutely can very easily. That's one of the things that I think
super easy. They actually just did an update to it, and I was actually just playing around with this like a week ago, and you can create different kind of avenues or different channels. So you can say these devices connect to this VPN. These devices don't need to be protected by a VPN, you know, like my smart home or whatever devices you choose, and you can kind of have different devices connecting to different like regions even. It's really flexible.
That is super cool. See, there's so much cool stuff about ExpressVPN, and I think it's worth checking out. I have talked before about the security of ExpressVPN and the unique features of ExpressVPN. It's an amazing service, and again, if you're not paying for your VPN, you're doing it wrong. You really should be paying for your VPN, because otherwise you have to go, how are they able to provide this without getting any money for it? And that's when you know that company is probably collecting your data. ExpressVPN, they do it right. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/TNW. That's expressvpn.com/TNW. And you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/TNW. And thanks to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this episode of Tech News Weekly and, frankly, for keeping me secure online. All right, I want to talk about a good old pal of mine, Tumblr. Tumblr was this is this site that I remember fondly. I have not been to Tumblr in a long time because Tumblr these days is a garbage dump. But it didn't used to be that way. I remember before Tumblr was purchased by Yahoo, when it was this great site full of quirky weirdos who shared all sorts of good stuff. I originally went to school to be a graphic designer before I ended up changing to journalism. And so I used Tumblr for lots and lots and lots of graphic design inspiration, following lots of different graphic design posts, and then went from there to interior design stuff and funny jokes. And it was Twitter before Twitter and far more visual. Tumblr was just this great site where you could create your own blog and kind of share who you were through the different posts that you shared from other people and that you shared yourself. Unfortunately, Tumblr lost a lot of its soul over time. After its acquisition, changes took place that even further kind of made people evacuate the platform. And then came the ads. Tumblr's ads are easily some of the worst ads that exist on the internet. They are uniquely terrible, and it's hard to describe, frankly, the way that the advertisement works there. They make it very blatant that they're tracking you in whatever ways that they can, because there are often these ads that are like, so for example, living in Petaluma, there'll be an ad that's like, this Petaluma driver figured out a way to save $100 on their car insurance. And you're supposed to click, and then you get to learn how everybody in every single city in the United States can save $100 on their car insurance, and it's not just unique to Petaluma. Lots of weird targeted ads that are just blatant, but also just lots of trash ads that aren't anything that anyone cares about. So, in an attempt to fix this, Tumblr has announced a new feature called ad-free browsing. It's $4.99 a month and $39.99 a year. And it is a way to be able to go on Tumblr and use Tumblr and not have to see ads. Tumblr was, as I said, purchased by Yahoo in 2013. That was for $1.1 billion. Then Verizon, which I think like Verizon owned Yahoo, somehow that, I'm not exactly sure how that all worked out, but Verizon ended up selling Tumblr to the makers of WordPress, Automatic with 2 T's at the end, for far less than the original money was paid for it by Yahoo. So it is now in the hands of Automatic. And when that happened, I have to say, I was very happy to hear that Automatic had picked it up, because I felt like that could give it the chance of sort of renewing and reviving Tumblr under this new ownership. As this Verge article points out, David Karp, who was the original creator of Tumblr and the founder of Tumblr, was not into allowing advertising on the site. And so originally there was no advertising on Tumblr. And then advertising was added later on, and they were just terrible, terrible ads that got in the way of all of the content that people were sharing. So all of these changes, again, made people just leave the platform left and right. And as I said, I haven't been back there in a long time. I don't know if the new acquisition by Automatic has changed the state of Tumblr. The problem that I see, Jason, is that now that people have left, why would people want to... there are fewer and fewer people all the time who are browsing Tumblr regularly because all of this stuff scared them away. So you're not going to get a whole lot of people going and paying this. I, for example, if I had remained on Tumblr because it didn't go to crud, then sure, now I would go, oh yeah, I'd like to support Tumblr and get rid of the advertisements, so I'll pay this. But I left Tumblr a long time ago along with a lot of other folks, so I think it's going to be hard for them to be able to do this. So yeah, I don't know. Were you ever on Tumblr? Did you know anyone who used Tumblr? And kind of, I'm curious if you feel like there's success to be found in companies offering this kind of option of adding sponsor or subscriptions to kind of supplement their value.
I definitely see there's value for companies to explore this. I mean, we actually did it, right? Club Twit is our version of this. And no doubt, like there's people out there who will probably pay this. I have never really been a Tumblr user. Like Tumblr has been one of those curiosities, one of those sites and experiences that crops up here and there throughout my internet existence. But I don't know that I've ever had a Tumblr site, or if I did, I certainly never updated it. And had no real reason to visit Tumblr. I think, and I wonder if it's like maybe it's like a generational thing. You know what I mean? Like I do know that people who loved Tumblr, I don't know. Yeah, it missed me, I guess. That's all I can say about that. But I will say that when I saw this in the rundown, I had to do a second look at the article, because in my head I kind of thought Tumblr was gone. Like I honestly thought there was no more Tumblr.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, ad free for a fee? And that tells me something. That tells me that they haven't done a good job of staying relevant to everyone, but they probably have their fan base. I don't know how large it is, but I don't know how successful this is going to be. You just don't really hear about Tumblr much anymore. It's not one of those properties that you stumble across all the time, you know?
Yeah. See, that's the other thing about this is young millennials like myself, just sort of right out of the range of or very out of the range, depending, of Gen Z, et cetera, are, I think, squarely within the Tumblr range. My pal Christina Warren, a big Tumblr person. And for most folks in that range, especially in my age bracket, an extra $4.99 a month is something that is not incredibly surmountable. You know what I mean? Like you've got you've got the two streaming services that you pay for, and then you've got to pay your bills and your rent and all that kind of stuff. And so adding on a subscription service just to get ad free, I don't really see it. I don't know how many people they're going to be able to pick up on this because of the fact that they ended up scaring away so many of their original fans, so their loyal fans, with Tumblr kind of losing its soul. So if Automatic, I think that, in my opinion, Automatic should have waited to launch this until they started to convince people that Tumblr and its original soul was back. You know what I mean?
It's
that,
back.
Hey,
Tumblr's back.
Yeah, Tumblr's
totally.
back. People are coming back to the site. It's growing and living anew. Then they go on to add this feature. So, yeah. I don't know. I just I feel bad for Tumblr because it did play such a role early on, and I really liked it at the time, and it's lost its soul. And
I mean, I get a very and I could be wrong, but I get a very MySpace kind of vibe from Tumblr. You know, MySpace had its time. And then it just kind of like became something else that no one really noticed or cared about. And MySpace still exists, right? Like it's still a thing.
I think so.
And you know, so I guess somebody's using MySpace for something, but it's completely different than it was before, and firmly outside of the conversation, you know, that the majority of internet users are having. So I kind of get the same kind of feeling from Tumblr that I do MySpace, and I don't know if that's mischaracterization, but
no, I think that's
it is what it is.
I think that's a fair call. So that's that.
Yeah.
Tumblr, I'm sorry.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see how this goes for you, Tumblr. But, you know, hey, I'm always pulling for the underdog. So there you go. We've reached the end of this episode of Tech News Weekly. We do this show every Thursday morning, at least here on the West Coast. When you go to twit.tv/TNW, you will find our show page, and that's where you can find all the links to subscribe in audio and video formats. Just subscribe to the podcast there, or you can jump out to YouTube and subscribe there.
If you want to get all of our shows ad-free, we were just talking about that, check out Club Twit for $7 a month. You can get every single Twitch show with no ads, so you'll be able to listen to the content ad-free, straight on through. You'll also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else. Behind the scenes, outtakes, before the show, after the show, and some excellent AMAs with lots of cool guests. You also get access to the members-only Discord server. This is the place where you can chat with your fellow Club Twit members, but also those of us here at Twit as well. Rosemary Orchard is easily one of the most active people in the Club Twit Discord. So if you've got iOS questions especially, it's a great place to be. $7 a month. If all of that sounds good to you, it's at twit.tv/clubtwit. Well worth checking out and supporting Twit directly, because we have not lost our soul. You can also subscribe to individual shows if you'd like using Apple Podcasts. You just type in Tech News Weekly, find the audio version of Tech News Weekly in Apple Podcasts, and for $2.99 a month, you'll get the ad-free audio version of Tech News Weekly. So that's a great way to support individual shows directly without bothering with the extra stuff if that's not your thing. But again, all that extra stuff is pretty cool. So twit.tv/clubtwit for that. If you'd like to tweet at me, I'm at Mikah Sargent on pretty much every social media network, or head to chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. It should be next week, next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. I should be rejoining Leo Laporte for the Tech Guy on Saturdays. And you can always check out iOS Today on Tuesdays, which I record with Rosemary Orchard. Jason Howell, what about you?
Nice. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Jason Howell, and doing other shows on the network, all about Android, of course, every Tuesday, twit.tv/AAA. I also just did an AMA. So I know that on Club Twit, Owen JJ Stone, Odocta had a AMA this morning with Aunt Pruitt. Odocta had me on his DocTales podcast a couple of days ago with an AMA with me. So, you know, go to my Twitter profile, and you can find me retweeting a link to that if you want to watch the full interview there at Jason Howell on Twitter. Big thanks to everyone at the studio who help us do this show each and every week. To you, John, yes, we salute you. To you, Burke, we salute you. And we salute each and every one of you who watch and listen to us each and every week. We appreciate it. Thank you. We'll see you next time on Tech News Weekly. Bye, everybody.
I'm just saluting left and right.
Did you spend a lot of money on your brand new smartphone, and then you look at the pictures on Facebook and Instagram and you're like, what in the world happened to that photo? Yes, You have, I know. It happens to all of us. Well, you need to check out my show, Hands On Photography, where I'm going to walk you through simple tips and tricks that are going to help make you get the most out of your smartphone camera or your DSLR or mirrorless, whatever you have. And those shots are going to look so much better. I promise you. So make sure you're tuning in to twit.tv/hop for Hands On Photography to find out more.